Go for a gate question. If you are finished with this, let's go for a gate question. Are you ready for this? I want everyone to solve this question. This question was asked in GATE 2004. Okay. Are you ready for this? Shall I give the question? Yes. So write down. An RCC footing of 2 meter length, square footing. An RCC footing of 2 meter square. Please, one second. Yes. You can write the question like this. An RCC square footing. An RCC square footing of 2 meter length. An RCC square footing of 2 meter length and uniform effective depth of 200 mm. An RCC square footing of 2 meter size and uniform effective depth of 200 mm is provided with a square column of size 300 mm by 300 mm. Is provided with a square column of size 300 mm by 300 mm. 300 mm by 300 mm. The line of action of the compressive load. The line of action of the compressive load. The line of action of the compressive load. The line of action of the compressive load pass through the centroid of the footing. The line of action of the compressive load pass through the centroid of the footing as well as of the column. Pass through the centroid of the footing as well as of the column. If the magnitude of the load is 320 kilonewton. If the magnitude of the load is 320 kilonewton. If the magnitude of the load is 320 kilonewton, the nominal transverse one-way shear stress in the footing is. The nominal, you can write it, one-way shear stress in the footing is. The nominal one-way shear stress in the footing is. Options are also given: 0.26 MPa, 0.36 MPa, 0.34 MPa and 0.75 MPa. Try to solve it. 0.26, 0.3, 0.36, 0.26, 0.36, 0.34 and 0.75. Try to solve them. Hopefully we have to calculate Q0. I told you Q0 will be equal to load on the column divided by area of the footing. That will give you the value of Q0. I'll read the question. An RCC square footing of 2 meter size and uniform effective depth 200 mm is provided. 200 mm is provided for a square column of 300 mm by 300 mm. The line of action of compressive load pass through the centroid of the footing as well as of the column. Then if the magnitude of the load is 320 kilonewton, the nominal transverse one-way shear stress is. See, we are given with a square footing here. Let's draw the square footing first. We are given with an RCC square footing here. We are given with an RCC square footing. Like this. We are given with an RCC square footing. This is the RCC square footing I have. Okay. This is the RCC square footing I have. And we are given with the square footing. Size of the footing is given as 2 meter. Right. This is the size of the footing. And the effective depth of the footing is given as 0.2 meter, that is 200 mm. And the line of action of the column and the footing pass through the centroid of the footing as well as the column. Leave it that. That means the line of action is the column is acting exactly through the center of the footing. There is no eccentricity there, right? So if the magnitude of the load here, that is the load acting on the column, is also given, that is 320 kilonewton is the load acting on the column. And the nominal transverse shear stress, we are asked to find the nominal transverse shear stress, that is one-way shear stress. As we have discussed, the one-way shear stress will be, the critical section for one-way shear stress will be at a distance D from the face of the column, correct? At a distance D from the face of the column. And this is the column I have, this is the column I have, this is the square column I have. This is 0.2 meter and this is 0.2 meter. The critical section will be at a distance 0.2 from the face of the column, right? The size of the column is also given, sorry, it is 0.3. It is 0.3 and 0.3. Size of the column is given as 0.3 and 0.3. And the depth of the footing is given as, the thickness of the footing is given as 0.2 meters. And then we have to choose the critical section at a distance d from the face of the column. As it is a square column, we can consider the critical section either on this side or this side, doesn't matter. Why? Because both are going to give you the correct answer, I mean same answer. If it is a rectangular column, we have to choose the shorter dimension. Why? Because the shorter direction is critical for one-way shear. So one-way shear stress here will be equal to, or one-way shear force. Let's calculate the one-way shear force. One-way shear force here will be equal to, that is VU will be equal to Q0 into A1. I am going to consider that as A1. I am going to consider this area as A1. This is the area. We don't have the value of Q0. Let's calculate the value of Q0. Q0 means the soil pressure below the footing level. This will be our Q0. Q0 will be equal to total load divided by, that is 320 kilonewton into 10 power 3 divided by area of the footing. Area of the footing here will be equal to, area of the footing here will be equal to 2 into 2, right? So 2 into 2 will be the area of the footing, that is 320 divided into 10 power 3. Okay, let's say, one second, let's say 320 into 10 power 3 divided by 2000 into 2000 will give you the value in Newton per mm square. Tell me the value of this. Tell me the value of this. 320 into 10 power 3 divided by 2000 into 2000. So the value here will be equal to 0.08, right? What's the answer here? Kilonewton by Newton per mm square. What's the answer? The answer here is, exactly, it is 0.08 Newton per mm square. It is 0.08 Newton per mm square will be the Q0 value. So apply the Q0 value here, 0.08 will be the Q0 value. Let's calculate the area here. To calculate the area, we have to think about this distance. This distance. Total distance is 2 meter. If I deduct this minus 4, minus 3, it will become 1.7. So it will become, it is 0.2, it is 0.3, and this distance here is 1.7 divided by 2. Correct. The remaining portion is 2 minus 0.65, right? Exactly. It is 0.65. This distance is 0.65, right? Yeah. So that distance is 0.65. Now calculate the area there. The area there is 0.65 meter square, right? It is a 0.65 meter square. Or we can consider this Q0 we can consider this Q0 in kilometer per, I mean Newton per meter square also. Convert this area. This Q0 area there is 3.5. Sorry, it is 0.65. It is 0.65 into the length is 2 meter. Let's convert this in Newton per millimeter square. Now let's better calculate it in 80 kilonewton per mm square into 0.65 into 2. That will be the one-way shear stress. 80 into 0.65 into 2. The answer will be equal to 104 kilonewton will be the one-way shear. Correct? 104 kilonewton will be the one-way shear. And the one-way shear stress tau is equal to 104 into 10 power 3 divided by, that is VU divided by B into this distance into, that is 2 meter into distance here is 0.2. Or I can say 104 divided by 2 into 0.2. What is the answer here? You have calculated, any mistakes are there? No. So it will be equal to 10 power 3, it will be 10 power 6. What is the answer? So you will be getting the answer as 0.26 MPa. That is 0.26 Newton per mm square will be the answer here. Right? 0.26 MPa will be the answer here. That is the nominal shear stress. That is nominal one-way shear stress for footing here will be equal to 0.26 MPa. Okay. It was like a gate question asked in 2004, asked for 2 marks. Okay. You can if they are asking question from this, if they are going to ask you the question from this topic, they are going to ask you how to calculate the one-way shear force, two-way shear force, one-way shear stress, and two-way shear stress. That's it, not more than that. Okay, please note it down. Those who have not solved, please note it down. Dhruv is saying that 0. Okay, that is okay. 0.08 Newton per mm square or 80 kilonewton per meter square. Okay, that 80 there is 80 kilonewton per mm square. Any doubts in footing? No, I guess, right? You have to remember only the caudal recommendation of footings, and you have to remember only these details, like what is the equation for finding the nominal one-way shear force, one-way shear force, two-way shear force, and bending moment. how to calculate the nominal shear stress, that is nominal one-way shear stress, nominal or two-way shear stress. Okay. So let me ask this question before starting this chapter. What is pre-stressed concrete? Pre-stressed concrete. Stress induced or already concrete present, stress induced. Okay. What is pre-stressed concrete? Pre-stressed concrete. The name itself says it. Pre-stressed concrete. It's a pre-stressed concrete is actually a different concept from our reinforcement cement concrete. See, when we discussed about the reinforcement cement concrete, we will discuss like this, right? When we have, we are having suppose a slab here. We are having a slab here. Sorry, or we are having a beam here. I'm considering a beam here. We are having a simply supported beam, right? We are having a simply supported beam here. And when some load is acting, what is going to happen? It is going to bend like this. This is the bending profile, or this way the concrete is going to, the beam is going to bend, right? So as we have discussed, as we already know, there is neutral axis. We have the neutral axis here, and below the neutral axis, the nature of force will be compressive. Sorry, it will be tensile. Why? Because the fibers below the neutral axis will be stretching. There will be tensile forces. And above the neutral axis, there will be compressive forces. The nature of the force above the neutral axis will be compressive in nature. In RCC, what we were doing, as we know already, that concrete is weak in carrying the tensile forces. We will introduce something inside the concrete to make it strong in tension, right? So that is the concept of RCC, reinforcement cement concrete. But here in pre-stressed concrete, the concept is a bit different. What is that difference? See, this is a concrete beam, plain cement concrete beam. No RCC, nothing. Forget about the concept of reinforcement cement concrete there. Forget about that. I am having a beam here. Load is applied, and due to this load, we are having compressive stresses above the neutral axis, and below the neutral axis there is tensile stresses. In forget about RCC. We don't know about RCC. How to rectify this problem? I told you, one way we can increase the tensile strength of the concrete by introducing our reinforcement. One more option is there available with us actually. See, this is tensile strength. We already know when the load is acting on this beam, if the load is acting in this beam, below the neutral axis there will be tensile stresses. We already know that, right? Suppose in this we have the neutral axis here. We already know after the load application, the load or the stresses which are going to be introduced here in the concrete is tensile. We already know that, correct? We already know if it is a simply supported beam, due to different loading conditions, we already know the stress which is going to be introduced here below the neutral axis is tensile in nature. Then what I am going to do is, before the application of the load, listen. Before the application of the load in this beam, I am going to give some compressive stresses to the beam. I am going to induce, or I am going to give some compressive stresses. I am going to store some compressive stresses there in the beam. That means I am going to give some compressive stresses here initially before the application of the load to the beam. So when we apply no load, nothing. When we apply the compressive stresses below the neutral axis, what is going to happen? The beam is going to deflect like this, right? The beam is going to deflect like this, which means that below the neutral axis we will be having the compressive forces. We will be having the compressive stresses below the neutral axis. Are you getting this? We will be having the compressive stresses and tensile stresses above the neutral axis, right? What I am doing, this is a beam which I am going to construct. We know after the application of the load, the nature of stresses which are going to be introduced below the neutral axis is tensile in nature. We already know that. So what I am going to do is, before the application of the load, we are going to introduce some compressive stresses below the neutral axis of the load. What is the advantage I will be getting here? Tell me what will be the advantage I will be getting here. Anyone? I'll come to that, Ritu. I'll come to that. What is the advantage I will be getting here? See, I have introduced compressive stresses here. I have introduced compressive stresses here. I know that below the neutral axis there will be tensile stresses, correct? This tensile stresses will be balanced by this compressive stress. This tensile stresses will be balanced by this compressive stresses, which means that beam will not have to take that much tensile stresses. That is the concept of our that's the concept of our pre-stressed concrete, where the beam will be subjected to compressive stress. The whole section of the beam will be subjected to compressive stresses initially or before the application of the load. So that when on the application of the load, there will be tensile stresses developed. That tensile stresses will get balanced due to this compressive stresses, which is already induced in the pre-stressed concrete. This is actually our pre-stressed concrete. This is our under load. This is under load. The concrete, the beam is going to behave like this. This is due to pre-stress, and together they are going to act like this. Together they are going to act like this, where all the tensile stresses are balanced by our compressive stresses. Together, all the compressive stresses are all the tensile stresses are balanced by our compressive stresses already introduced inside the concrete. Got it? Already introduced in the concrete. We'll be providing the compressive stresses initially to the beam. To the whole section. We'll be providing the initial compressive section to the whole concrete section, so that the tensile stresses which are being developed due to the application of the load, during the application of the load, will get balanced. That's the concept of pre-stressing. Yes, that's also one of the advantage. The advantage I'll be getting here is the load carrying capacity can be increased, the deflection will get reduced, and the cross section can be reduced. Cross section of the area, the cross section of the beam, cross section of the sections can be reduced. That means dead load can be reduced. If you use the pre-stressed concrete sections, the advantage I'll be getting here is load carrying capacity can be improved, deflection can be reduced, the cross section area required will be less, which means that the dead load which has to be carried will become less. This is the concept of pre-stressed concrete. Okay, the load, when we apply the load, below the load axis there will be tensile stresses. Forget about the RCC. In RCC we will introduce the concrete, we will introduce the reinforcement inside. Here in pre-stressed concrete, what I am going to do, I am going to introduce compressive stresses initially before the application of the load to the concrete, to the whole section of the concrete. So what is going to happen? The compressive stresses introduced will balance the tensile stresses which are going to be developed after the application of the load in the beam, right? Then it will be balanced. That is the concept of pre-stressed concrete. Get it? Now, see, pre-stressing can be done in two ways. Pre-stressing can be done in two ways. First one is, what are the different pre-stressing systems? Pre-stressing can be done in two ways. Then what are they? What are the different pre-stressing systems? What are the different pre-stressing systems? Exactly, we have pre-tension systems. We have pre-tension systems, and we have post-tension systems, or pre-tensioning and post-tensioning. Post-tensioning and pre-tensioning. I'm going to write it as pre-tensioning and post-tensioning. What is pre-tensioning? Pre-tensioning and post-tensioning. See, in the name there we have tension is there. In the name we have tension is there, but don't think that we are applying the tensile stresses there. The stress we are going to apply is only compressive. But we will discuss what is this pre-tensioning, we will discuss what is post-tensioning, and you will understand the concept. See, in pre-stress, how we can introduce this pre-stress? That's the one of the concept you should understand. How to introduce this pre-stress? See, in pre-tension concrete, what I am going to do is, I will introduce this pre-stress. Before the placing of concrete, or pre-stressing is done. Pre-stressing is done before the application of before concreting, or we can say before concreting. Pre-stressing is done before concreting, or before the placement of before placing the concrete, the tendons will be pre-stressed. I'll discuss about this. Okay, and here tensioning is or pre-stressing is done first, and here it is done after concreting. It is done after concreting. I told you here in pre-stress we can introduce the compressive stress. These compressive stresses are introduced within the concrete, within this steel, within this concrete with high yield strength bars. It's not bars actually, it's steel wires and cables like this. They are called tendons. We will apply this compressive stress with the tendons. I'll tell you this. See what we will do in pre-tensioning, what we will do in post-tensioning. You can see there in the PPT. I can show you it with the help of a PPT. You can see there in the PPT, that is actually the stages of pre-stressing. You can see there. First, what I'm going to do is I will apply the, see what I'm going to do is, listen here. I'm going to see, suppose I have the, this is the position I have to provide or pre-tensioned concrete beam. This is pre-tensioned concrete beam. I have to go, I'm going to construct the pre-tensioned concrete beam here. I have to construct a beam here. What I'm going to do is I will first take the steel reinforcement, that is called tendons here in the pre-stressed concrete beam. I'll take that tendons here. I'll take that tendon here. And first I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch it. I'm going to apply the tensile force here, right? I'm going to stretch this reinforcement. I'm going to stretch this tendons like this. I'm going to stretch the tendons like this. After that, I will provide anchorage at the ends. That means I have stretched it. The length is increased, and finally I'm going to provide anchorage. So the reinforcement will be like this. Initially the reinforcement was the length of the reinforcement, length of the tendon was up to this. And after this, what I did, I just stretched it. Now the length is this much, right? And I have provided anchorage. You can see there in the figure. That is called jacking at the ends, right? Then after that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to place the concrete here, and we'll do the usual procedure. We'll place the concrete, then curing, compacting, all those things will be done. After the concrete attained our sufficient strength, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the tendon at the ends. I'm going to cut the tendon at the ends. Then if I cut the tendons, what will happen? If I cut the tendon, what will happen? These tendons was this much length, but I stressed it, I just stretched it. That means I have applied tensile forces on this cable. I have stretched it, and when I cut these tendons at the ends, this will try to come back to the original length. Correct or not? This will try to come back to the original length or not. But when I stretched it, no concrete were there. But when I cut it, concrete is there in the hardened state. And concrete is in contact with the reinforcement. Correct? Concrete is in contact with the tendons. So due to this contact, or due to the friction between this, or due to the bond between this tendon and the concrete, this cannot be this. There will be some resistance, right? This is trying to come back, and there will be some resistance inside the concrete and this tendons. And due to this resistance, compressive stresses will be generated inside this concrete block. Getting it? That's the meaning of our pre-tension. Are you getting it or not? Initially, the tendon was like this, no concrete, nothing. Suppose I have to construct a beam here. First, what I am going to do, I am going to stretch our reinforcements. I am going to stretch our tendons. Initially, it was up to here. Now, it will become like this. Then after that, I am going to provide anchorage. That means this stretched length is maintained. After providing sufficient anchorage, I am going to provide the beam here. I am going to construct our beam here. Usual procedure is done. After this concrete has attained sufficient strength, I am going to cut the reinforcement at the ends. When I cut the reinforcement at the ends, due to the presence of the concrete or due to the bond present between the concrete and the tendons, tendon will try, when the tendon tries to come back due to the friction or the bond between the concrete and the tendons, there will be compressive stresses developed inside this concrete. That is called our pre-tension systems. You can see that in the figure. What is the first thing? Just now I told you, there will be pre-stressing cable. You can see there in the blue arrow, right? We are just stretching it, and we will provide the jacking there, we will provide the anchorage there. In the second figure, we will cast the concrete. And in the third figure, when we cut the reinforcement, there will be compressive stresses will be generated in the concrete. Right? That's what is going to happen. Right? When loads are acting, tensile stresses will be generated below the nodal axis. That tensile stresses developed below the nodal axis will get neutralized with the compressive stresses already present in the concrete. Is that clear? Okay, fine. Then for pre-tensioning, different systems are available. Systems of pre-tensioning. We have Hoyer's method, or it's also called long line method. I have to remember one more thing here. The concrete is in contact with the steel. Okay, concrete is in contact with the tendon. concrete is in contact with the tendon, and the pre-stressing is due to bond between concrete and tendon. When I stress the tendon, there is no concrete. After that, after we place the concrete, there will be friction will be there. Friction will be there. Bond will be there, and due to that bond, pre-stressing will be there inside this concrete. And what is there in post-tensioning? You can see there in the PPT. The concrete will be cast first. We'll cast the concrete beam first. Here I want to construct a post-tension concrete beam. I'm just casting the concrete here, right? See, before casting the concrete, we will place one duct there inside this concrete. That means after casting, we will provide the reinforcement. That's the meaning of our post-tensioning. After the construction of the concrete, we will apply the tension to the reinforcement. We will apply the tension to the tendons. So in post-tensioning, what is going to happen? In post-tensioning, we will cast the concrete block or concrete beam. There will be provision for the placement of the concrete. After the concrete attained its sufficient strength, I will place the tendon inside this concrete block. Suppose this is our concrete block. Now I will introduce our reinforcement. After introducing this reinforcement, what I am going to do, I am going to stretch it again. I am going to apply tensile forces. I am going to apply the tensile forces to the tendons. I am applying the tensile forces. Like this. I will provide the anchorage there. After that, I will use some hydraulic jacks to stretch it. Okay, I'll use hydraulic jacks or jacking will be provided for stretching it. I'll be applying the tensile forces with the help of hydraulic jacks. I have applied like this. Now the length of the tendon is like this. Before it was here, and now it is here. And after that, what I am going to do is at the end of the beam, on this tendons, I am going to provide anchorage. So that the tendon will not move from that position, right? Then after that, I am going to cut the tendons after this anchorage. I will cut the tendons. Of course, it will try to come back to the original position. But due to this anchorage present at the ends, it is going to give the compressive stresses to the beams. Getting it? It is going to give the compressive stresses to the beams. Getting it? This is going to give you the compressive stresses. In that way, we can introduce compressive stresses to the beams. That kind of systems is called post-tensioned systems. It is called post-tensioned systems. It is done after concreting. Concrete is not in contact. It can be in contact with the concrete, or it may not be in contact with the concrete. But the pre-tensioning is done due to end anchorage. Pre-tensioning is done due to end anchorage. The systems of pre-stressing are systems of post-tensioning are, we have Magnell-Boulton, Gifford-Udall system of post-tensioning, system, and we have Freyssinet system. Okay, these are the systems of, these are the methods we generally prefer for the pre-tensioning, post-tensioning of the concrete. And here for pre-tensioning, we will be going with Hoyer's method and long line method. Remember one thing, this pre-stressing method or this Hoyer's method is generally used for the mass production. When we need to provide pre-stressed concrete beam in bulk, then we have to go for this Hoyer's method. Generally, it is used for the sleeper production. You know what is sleeper, right? You might have studied this in railway engineering. For sleeper production and all, we have to go for this Hoyer's method of pre-tensioning. Okay, you can see there in the figure, in the first figure, there is a casting bed where we cast the concrete, and you can see that duct also there, through which we have to provide the tendons after concrete has hardened, right? Then in second figure, you can see the tendons are provided inside the ducts, and after that we are going to stretch it, and after stretching we are going to provide the anchorage. We will be providing the anchorage there. You can see that in the third figure, and after providing the anchorage, I am going to cut the tendons after the anchorage. When we cut the tendons, that tendons is going to compressive stresses are going to be generated at the ends. So due to this compressive stresses, the tensile stresses which are going to be generated in the concrete will get balanced. And you have to remember one more thing: the minimum grade of concrete required here for post tensioning is M30. M30 grade concrete is required for post tensioning, and for pre tensioning you need a minimum grade of M40. You need a minimum grade of M40 for post tensioning. Sorry, M40 for pre tensioning, and M30 grade for concrete is required for post tensioning. This is important, very very important. You can expect many questions from these two concepts. See, some people will think that this is pre-tensioning, then it must be 30. It's not like that. For pre-tensioning system, minimum of M30 must be provided, and for post-tensioning system, a minimum of M30 must be provided. Yes, please note it down. Maybe you are talking about pre-stressing, right? Entire section will be under compression. Rudu, entire section will be under compression. Sir, it may not be economical then. See, Angit, the reason here is, see, in pre-stressed concrete, it's not like, it's not similar to our reinforced cement concrete structures. Here in pre-stressed concrete, we need to use high yield strength. Bars must be used. Why? Because they have to carry a large force, no? So we have to go for high yield strength bars. And for concrete, we need high grade strength concrete. Why? Because see, in the post-tension system, we are providing anchorage, and the compressive, we are introducing the compressive stress. The magnitude of this compressive stress will be very high, and due to this there is a possibility of crushing of the concrete, where we can say bursting of the concrete is possible. So strength is also criteria, right? So we have to think about the strength also. That's why we are providing a higher grade concrete there. Again, sir, pre-tension minimum concrete is pre-tension. We have to go for M40. M40 grade concrete must be provided for pre-tension concrete system, and for post-tension we have to provide a minimum of M30 grade concrete and M40 grade concrete. So sir, we can say pre-stress. Yes, of course it is. Why? Because see, in nowadays in almost every structures are being replaced by a pre-stress concrete. See, suppose if in a high-rise building with RCC, suppose if we can construct about suppose we are constructing around 20-story building, but with pre-stress concrete, for the same height, maybe we can construct around 20 to 23 stories. I'm exaggerating the things, but still. Why? Because the dead load will be very less, the cross-section area required will be very less, deflection will be less. We have the pre-stress concrete is having many advantages over our reinforcement cement concrete. Okay, so it's being RCC is being replaced by RCC is being replaced by pre-stress concrete. Done. So analysis of pre-stress concrete. So for the analysis, I'm going to consider different cases so that you will understand it in a better way. I'm going to consider case number 1. Case number 1 is concentric pre-stressing. Case number 1, please write it. Concentric pre-stressing. I'm not talking about load here. Concentric pre-stressing. Concentric pre-stressing. So what is the meaning of this concentric pre-stressing? See, suppose I have considered a beam here. Suppose this is a beam I have considered. Suppose it is a simply supported beam. Okay, this is a simply supported beam I have, and this is the neutral axis. We have to place the tendons, right? We have to place the tendons for giving the compressive stresses, right? We will be applying tensile forces in it. After cutting the reinforcement, it is going to give the compressive stresses to the concrete, right? That's the concept that I'm going to place our tendons here along the neutral axis of the beam. This is the tendons I am going to provide. This is the compressive stresses. I am going to call it as pre-stress. This is the concept of pre-stress. So if I calculate, see, I'll be by analysis. The meaning of that is I am interested in calculating the stresses. I am going to calculate the stress at the bottom fiber and stress at the extreme top fiber. Why? Because there will be having the maximum stresses, right? So we are interested in calculating the top stress, or I am going to calculate the bottom stress. Can you tell me when the pre-stress is given concentrically, or when there is no eccentricity, then what will be the stress? The stress generated there. What will be the stress which is going to be generated here? What will be the stress which is going to get generated here? It will be P by A, that is the pre-stressing force divided by area of cross section. Correct or not? The total pre-stressing force which is going to get generated here is P by A, and it is compressive in nature. Correct or not? I am applying the compressive stresses. Here in pre-stress concrete, the compressive stresses must be taken as positive. Tensile stresses must be taken as negative. We are going to use the sign convention here like this. Why? Because the sign convention is actually based on our convenience, right? See, here in pre-stress concrete, the most dominating one is compressive. So I am going to consider it as positive, and the tensile stresses I am going to consider it as negative. So in concentric pre-stressing, we will be having constant pre-stress throughout the length of the beam. So it will be having P by A, that's throughout the length of the beam. Here P is the pre-stressing force and A is the area of cross section. Here listen here, if you draw the stress block, you will be having the stress block like this. The stress will be uniform throughout, will be P by A, and here also the top fiber also it is P by A, and it is positive. It is positive. Then this will be the stress diagram, P by A. I am not applying the load. No load is there. Okay, no load is there. If load is also coming, then the effect of that should also be considered. Then coming to the second one, please note it down fast. Go fast. Case number 2, eccentric pre-stressing, or the pre-stressing will be done with an eccentricity. Again, I am considering the same beam. I have the same beam here. I have the same beam here. I have the same beam here. This is the beam I have. Simply supported beam. This is a simply supported beam I have. This is the neutral axis. But here, the tendons will be placed at an eccentricity. The tendons will be placed at an eccentricity. I am going to call that eccentricity E. This will be our pre-stressing force. This will be our pre-stressing force. This will be our pre-stressing force. See, when the tendons are placed at an eccentricity, I'll tell that Dhruv, 1 second. This is the tendons are placed at an eccentricity, right? See, I am interested in calculating the stress at bottom. That I am going to call it as sigma T. Dhruv, stress at the bottom. Okay, sorry, it is sigma B. Stress at the bottom will be, I am going to call it as bottom stress. And here stress at the top, I am going to call it as sigma T and sigma B. Okay, where we will be having the maximum stress. See, if you think about this, if you just try to represent the effect of this load, what is happening? Due to this pre-stress, we will be having one compressive force here, and due to this eccentricity, we will be having moment also here, that is P into E, correct? Right? And here also we will be having our pre-stressing force, and we will be having the moment also there, that is P into E. Right? So while calculating the stress, we need to consider the effect of both. That is, we need to consider the effect of this PE, and we need to consider this effect of this P. See, if I calculate the stress, that is stress at the top. If I calculate the stress at the top, that is stress at the top. What are the factors giving stress here? This P will be creating a stress, and PE will also be creating a stress. P is a moment, right? So the stress due to P. What is the stress due to P? What is the stress due to this P? We have discussed just now. What is the stress due to this P? That's the compressive force. That is the pre-stressing force. Exactly, it is P by A. Yes, stress will be equal to P by A. Right? Forget about this top or not. This I am just calculating the stress. Right? Then due to moment, how to calculate the stress due to moment? How to calculate the stress due to moment? We have to go for the bending equation. What is the bending equation? M by I is equal to F by Y will be the bending stress. From this we can calculate the bending stress. F is equal to My divided by I. where M here is equal to PE into Y divided by I. Correct? PE into Y divided by I. See, as I am calculating the stress at the extreme fibers, I can consider I as M max. Correct or not? Y as Y max. Why I am considering this? I am considering the stress at the extreme compression fiber. I am considering the stress at the extreme top fiber, and I am considering the stress, calculating the stress at the extreme bottom fiber. No? As I am calculating the stress at this extreme fibers, I can consider this Y max as Y max, right? Or I can write like this: PE into or PE divided by I by Y max. What is this I by Y max? What is this I by Y max? You might have studied it in Strength of materials. What is this I by Y max? Exactly, it is section modulus, or we can write it like this: PE by Z. PE by Z. Correct. PE by Z. So that is the moment due to our that is the moment due to our PE, right? If I am calculating, I need to calculate the stress at the top and stress at the bottom. I am interested in calculating the stress at top and stress at bottom. See, if I consider the top stress at the top, that is stress at the top, sigma T, P by A will be there, only compressive force will be there. When moment is acting, listen, when moment is acting, you have to remember this figure. What will be the sign of P by Z? Whether it will be positive or negative. Will it be positive or negative? You can see the figure here. Due to pre-stressing, above the nodal axis, what is there? What is there? What is there? What is the nature of stress there? It is tensile. Above the nodal axis, there is tensile nature. No, it is tensile in nature, right? Above the nodal axis. If the tensile stresses are considered as negative. So which one you are going to consider here? To calculate the stress at the top? To calculate the stress at the top, you have to consider it as negative. When we apply a moment here, it is when we apply a moment at the both ends, you can see the moment here, no? You can see the moment at the both. So here, you can see the moment at the both ends. It is hogging in nature. So you can see that above the nodal axis, the nature of stresses will be negative. Nature of stresses will be tensile. We have to consider it as negative. So this will be P by A minus P by Z will be the stress at the top of the P. Coming to stress at the bottom, if I consider stress at the bottom, where here should I use plus or minus? Tell me that. Here should I use plus or minus? For due to pre-stressing, should I consider plus or minus? Exactly, we have to go for plus. Why? Because we are applying the compressive stresses. The nature of stresses there will be below the nodal axis due to pre-stressing will be plus. That is compressive in nature. Got it? Got the concept? This stress at the top will be equal to P by A minus P by Z, and stress at bottom will be equal to P by A plus P by Z. P by A minus P by Z and P by A plus P by Z. Stress at the top and stress at the bottom. One more thing, listen here. One more thing you have to listen here. See, for a rectangular section, Y max, suppose for top fiber this is YT, and for bottom fiber I am considering it as YB. For rectangular section, this YT and YB will be equal, right? That means YT max and Y bottom max will be equal. I can consider here will be sigma B will be equal to sigma T, that is section modulus for the top fiber and section modulus for the section modulus considering the top fiber, section modulus considering the bottom fiber will be same. Correct or not? For rectangular beam itself is symmetric, right? For an unsymmetric section like this, as we are calculating the stress corresponding to top and bottom fiber, as we are considering the Y max value for top and bottom fiber, as we are considering the stress value for top and bottom fiber, here the Y value will be different. If I consider Y value, this Y value will be different. These Y values will be different. Why? Because centroidal area will be falling towards the bottom portion, no? Right? So here the Z value will be varying. See, Z value is what is I by Y max. For rectangular sections, for symmetric sections, this Z value will be same for top and bottom fibers. For unsymmetric sections, this Z value will not be equal. We have to consider or we have to calculate the Z value for top and bottom fibers separately. Where ZT will be equal to total I divided by Y to the top fiber. ZB will be equal to I divided by Y to the bottom fiber. You have to remember that also. This equation is this Z P by Z is valid only for square or is valid only for symmetric sections. Okay, not for unsymmetric sections. For unsymmetric sections, this y max value will be different for the top and bottom fiber. That's the thing you have to remember there. Yes, this equation is important. This equation is important. Till now we considered only the load effects. We considered only the load effects. See, what is eccentricity? That's actually, I can explain it here. See, eccentricity means from the neutral axis to the tendons. That's the meaning of eccentricity. Then how we can avoid how we can ignore the tensile bars? We cannot ignore that. Eccentricity means what is the distance from the neutral axis where we are providing the reinforcement. Distance from the neutral axis to the reinforcement. That's the to the tendons. That's the eccentricity. That's the meaning of eccentricity. Then right. So till now I did not talk about any loads. I was only talking about the stresses due to pre-stressing. I have considered only pre-stressing forces. Right. Now I am going to Now I am going to consider the effect of loads also. Right. Suppose some loads are also there. Eccentric pre-stressing with loads. Loads means dead load, live load, something will be there. Okay. Due to dead load and live load, there will be bending moment, right? Dead load bending moment and live load bending moment. I am going to consider it as dead load bending moment as MD or ML, or total bending moment I am going to consider as M. Tell me, due to bending moment also, due to bending moment due to external load also, there will be stresses in the beam, right? Then what will be the stress at the top? What will be the stress at the bottom? What will be the stress at the top fiber due to bending moment, due to loads? What will be the stress at the top fiber or bottom fiber due to bending moment due to loads? Bending moment occurring due to loads. Can you tell me? For bending moment PE, the stress was PE by Z, right? For bending moment M, what will be the stress? Exactly, it is M by Z. Superb, it is M by Z. If loading is there, you have to write it as a separate condition. If loading is there, it will become M by Z. Here also, it will become M by Z. Valid for rectangular or symmetric sections. If we are having unsymmetric sections, we will be having ZT here, we will be having ZB here. Tell me the nature of stresses here. Above the top, at the top fiber, M by ZT, will it be positive or negative? Above the neutral axis or at the top fiber, M by Z, will it be positive or not negative? Yes, excellent. You got the concept. It will be positive. Why it is positive? Think this figure. Load acting above the neutral axis, it is compressive in nature. Above the neutral axis, it is compressive in nature. The compressive stresses must be taken as positive. So the M by ZT will be there. And below the neutral axis, what is the nature of stress? What is the nature of stress below the neutral axis? Exactly, it is negative. Due to load, due to bending moment, due to the stress due to bending moment due to loads, the stress due to bending moment due to loads will be like this. On the top fiber plus M by ZT, and the bottom fiber will be minus M by ZT. I'm sure that you got this concept, right? Correct now? You are going to get many number of questions from this single equation. Got it? Otherwise, we can combine this. Also. How to combine them? For pre-stressed concrete beam with eccentric pre-stressing with external loads, sigma top or bottom fiber will be equal to P by A minus or plus PE by Z top or bottom plus or minus M by ZT or B. M by ZBT or B. You can write it in this way also. Suppose we are having some load here. We are having some load in the beam. Due to load, there will be bending moment in the beam. Due to bending moment, there will be stresses generated in the beam. Due to this load, it is going like this. That is, bending moment will be generated and deflection will also be there. When the beam deflects like this, above the neutral axis, the nature of stresses will be compressive in nature. Right? Here, M by Z is the stresses generated due to the bending or due to the loads acting on the structure. That can be dead load or that can be live load. The stress here above the neutral axis, sigma T, that means above the neutral axis. Above the neutral axis, stresses are positive. Why? Because the nature of stresses are compressive in nature. Below the neutral axis, you can see the stresses are below the neutral axis means bottom. Below the neutral axis, M by ZB will be negative. Why? Because below the neutral axis, the nature of stresses will be tensile in nature. Tensile stresses are taken as negative.